Let's journey back in time to when I first began to sense spirits in the spiritual world. Oh. Welcome back to another episode of Shanclen Shadow Productions. Now, before we get started, of course, I have to say, if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so we can get more followers on here. More Shanclen Shadow Warriors here. Oh. This story I'm going to be going back to is a tale that's going to be helping a lot of you out there who have these gifts, who have these abilities to be able to see, hear, and experience, dream, sense, all sorts of different things in the spiritual world. And I'm going to tell you about my experience of actually when I first started to dive into the world of the spirits. Oh, so you guys have already seen my video of growing up in a haunted house, and there are a couple other stories out there to where I'll probably be diving into those, and another tale of my childhood traumas that kind of made me the not so scared man I am today, just because I grew numb to it all. But I'm going to be taking you back to when I first started sensing the spiritual beings and the internet themselves. Now, it's different when you experience things because the spirits want you to experience them. Kind of like when I was growing up in the haunted house, I would see things, experience things, hear things from spirits, but that was, in a sense, against my own will. It was one of those things that were like, even as kids, I'll tell you this much. In our creation stories and in our teachings that we have, children are very, very sensitive to spiritual beings, because they say when a child is born, they are of the purest sense of what a being could be. They are, in a sense, a pure spirit when they are born. And they say that when they're that pure, they're still very connected to the Creator. So they say that kids can be able to see, hear, and interact and sense spiritual presences, whether that be good family spirits. It could be kind of demonish kind of things. You ever have kids where they just kind of tell you, Mom, I had an imaginary friend who said he was going to kill everybody in the house, or all these other different things, or I have an imaginary friend who's kind of creepy and scary. Or your kid would just kind of just go off and look into a corner and just start crying. Yeah, kids can see shit. And so when it comes to that, as you grow older, you in a sense start to lose that purity, that connection to the Creator, and you kind of go more into your physical being alone. So that's why like a lot of kids would be growing up and they would have these abilities, but then it kind of just fades out, it goes away. So that's something I always thought was very, very interesting. But a lot of the stories and everything that happened in that haunted house were, I was at a very young age, so I was very sensitive to a lot of things. So my teenage years, going up to be 18, 19 years old, I went through my trainings with my family members, but it was interesting to be able to unlock an ability to be able to interact with spiritual beings. Now that stage happened when I was about 18, 19 years old, and this so happened to happen at a ceremony. And a lot of people in my other videos kind of had questions about some of the ceremony stories that I've told, and they would be asking, they're like, why would a spiritual being make themselves weak and manifest into a physical being? Why would these beings kind of show themselves and put themselves at risk like that? Well, let me tell you, when it comes to spiritual ceremonies and in our culture, they in a sense start to blur the lines between physical and spiritual realms. So it's easier to see spiritual beings and deities when a ceremony happens. There's so many different steps to be able to interact with them and ask them for help and kind of see what's going on, and as well as take off the veil of the darkness that may be there. So that's in a sense of you would kind of see things in ceremonies, and beings would kind of make themselves known. Now, this particular ceremony that I went to was a very, very powerful ceremony, to where it's not so much like you have it indoors, it's more so of an outdoor ceremony, 4-day ceremony. And in this ceremony, spiritual beings like to come and participate. It's more so one of those public, not so much to the public people, but publicly to spiritual beings and deities. It's more so of a location that is neutral, to where you can kind of have darker spirits show up, but and good spirits and neutral spirits show up. But there are laws, spiritual laws, to where it's in a sense considered neutral ground, to where you, in a sense, cannot do harm to another spirit or another physical being at these locations. Otherwise, you're going to face the consequences of another even higher deity, almost like a police force that enforces it. And so that's why, like, a lot of evil beings don't really like to show up at these locations, because they can't help themselves. So during this ceremony, it was, like I said, I has been around 17, 18, 19 years old, around that time. And it was very interesting. It almost seems like my brain kind of developed. It shifted out of the teenager mindset and kind of went into more thinking outside of the box, to be able to understand spirituality and my senses of my own human body that I have. And at this ceremony, I have to say, I got freaked the fuck out a lot. It's very, very powerful. And I remember, I'll tell you, one of my very first encounters that I had, because during my trainings and going through everything that we've gone through, there was certain songs, medicines, and prayers that we had to say to be able to, I guess, unlock our spiritual abilities for the tasks, the cases, the missions, and everything that we had to go on. Now, when it came to this one, it kind of just turned on like a light switch inside of my own head and in my body and everything, and happened when I was sleeping. So at the ceremony, the people participating in the ceremony, they can sleep in teepees if they want to. So my uncle and I, we went to this ceremony, and we had our own teepee set up while we were over there. And what was very interesting was, at this location, not too far away, there's kind of like a little cook shack that's right there, but people actually slept in there. I would say about 20-30 feet to the west of us. And there was a floodlight that would kind of light up the location, not too close, not too far away from us. And I grew up going to this ceremony, but it was different this time because I was matured. I understood the ceremony, I understood the roles and everything that happened with it. So when we got done with our first day of the ceremony, and I went to sleep inside of the teepee, and in that floodlight, you can kind of see if people walk across the teepee canvas or walk nearby. You can see their shadows and everything. And one night, I wake up because I sense something. And when you sleep out there, it's very, very quiet. So when somebody's walking around, you kind of wake up a little bit to kind of hear it. But this one, I woke up sensing somebody was nearby, and they had a very powerful presence with them. Now, when I sensed this, it was very interesting because it was when I was asleep, and my senses kind of turned on, woke up, looked around and everything, and I heard footsteps walking toward the teepee. And I woke up, and I was kind of sleeping toward the canvas where the floodlight was, and I opened my eyes, and I didn't see a shadow. I was just like, okay, well, maybe my ears are playing tricks on me, and my eyes are playing tricks on me. And I kind of listened. I was still looking, kind of just waiting for that shadow to show up. But the footsteps ended up making their way right on the other side of the teepee canvas. And it was like right there. And I heard somebody breathing. But it wasn't just this being. It sounded like it was breathing through a tube. And when it was breathing, it was also speaking through the tube. And so when it was speaking through that tube, it was also walking by. but it was walking around the teepee canvas toward the door. And I was like kind of freaked out. I was like, is this good? Is this bad? I was very young. Like, my uncle wasn't in the teepee, he was somewhere else. And this is pretty late in the night. And my uncle likes to stay up late and over by the fireplace, so he's like kind of further away from where the teepee was. He hangs out with the firekeepers that keep the fire up all night, so that's where he was. But it was just me in the teepee, and there was no one else around. And if it was an actual physical person, you would have seen that shadow of them cast right there. And so they were walking toward the canvas right there. And I was like, holy shit. So I grabbed my sword and like I kind of had it ready and everything. And I was like freaking out because like this was like one of the very first times like at a ceremony that I full-heartedly, consciously remember seeing, feeling, hearing, not really seeing it, but it's like there would have been a shadow, so I'm like, I'm not going crazy, experiencing something like this. And it was very, very interesting because like when I grabbed my sword and I was kind of like ready for this thing to come in the teepee and do whatever and like try to, like, growing up with like all these things that we did in the Navajo Nation, fighting all these darkness and evil and stuff, with this, like hearing it clear as day, like it's an actual person right here and right now, it was scary. And I grabbed my sword and sure enough, nothing happened. The footstep and the voice just kind of went away, faded away. And I think it knew that I was there actually, and I would have done harm to him, so he's just like probably just walking by and doing something else. That was the first night. I was like, okay. So the next day we went out, we did the ceremony, and we finished up with the day, come back. I prayed about it all day, and I would have went to the chief and asked him and talked to him about it, but I was just like, maybe I'll wait till the end of it. So let's see what else kind of happens. I told my uncle about it, and he's just like, just pray about it. And so the next night I was visited by another spirit. And so this one right here kind of caught me really off guard and really freaked me out, was because I was sleeping again, and out there I was sleeping on a cot inside of the teepee again. My uncle was over at the firekeepers. I was kind of by myself, and I was sleeping toward the teepee canvas. The doorway's behind me, so I was sleeping on the west side of the teepee, and right by the main pole. I remember when I was sleeping, I kind of wake up a little bit whenever like I turn over in my bed. So I was sleeping there, and I was kind of uncomfortable, so I get over and I turn over toward the eastern door, and my eyes kind of open a little bit, and I saw a face like from the eyes up right next to the canvas where I was sleeping, but it was all black, and all you could see was like little blue pearl like dots, little blue dots, but it was like the color of pearly whites, like pearls. And he was sitting there, and like he was like staring at me, and he had two feathers that came out right here, and he was looking at me, and I was like, oh shit. And then sure enough, I don't know how he did it, but he had what looked like to be like little fireworks come out of his head, and he kind of shook his hands like this, and it was very interesting. It was like one of those sparklers kind of things, kind of went real quick, and he was like shaking his hands like this, and like I was like, oh, freaked out. And then like I kind of went away from the edge of the bed, and he just went like just disappeared like that. And I was like, what the fuck? See this thing right here in the middle of the night, and it freaked me out. And I told my uncle about it, and then he's just like, he kind of laughed and smiled. I was like, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? And he's just like, that's one of the clown spirits that we have, that's there at the ceremony that we have there. And he just kind of wanted to freak you out, but kind of as a prank, because he knows you're real jumpy, and you're really kind of always on guard. And so like he wanted to kind of freak you out, but also kind of cheer you up and let that he's not there to do anything bad or anything. And so like I was like, oh shit. So that was the second night. And the third night that came was very, very powerful too, because on the third night we're sleeping there, and I was tired from that day, prayed about it too, and I was pretty much asking the creator for guidance of things I was seeing. Like, if this is the gift developing for me, give me the strength and courage to be able to learn, understand it. Please explain it to me in a way that I will understand it. So the third night that came, it's a huge thunderstorm, and this is up in South Dakota area. So those thunderstorms were gnarly crazy, and it was almost like a hurricane type of storm. And so I remember waking up with thunder, huge thunder that just shook the ground, and rain was coming down so hard it was actually starting to hail. And middle of the night, I just remember waking up and seeing my uncle, because for those of you who do not know, like the teepee, it was just on bare grass. So like it has slits on the side to kind of let air flow and ventilate through there. And so it was raining so much, and we were kind of like on a little bit on a hill. The rain was flowing through the teepee, and I just remember seeing my uncle grabbing stuff, trying to like stuff that can't get wet, trying to stack it up and everything. He grabbed his one of his blankets, and he just threw it on top of me. And I remember looking up at the main teepee pole, and that thing was like, the winds were blowing it, and the main teepee pole was just like going like this, like it was like this close to my face. And I was like praying to the creator, like, please do not let this main pole break on me. Those teepee poles were a little bit older, but in recent years they got new ones, but it held, thankfully. But during that whole storm, it was very interesting because I have never felt a storm's power in such a way. Like, it was so powerful that I was scared. It brought me real nervousness, anxiousness, and just really wanted me to get me on my knees. Like, that's how powerful this storm was. And with the beats of the thunder, it came down, and I felt it in my chest. And the energies that came off of it, I was having like tingles all over my body, and like I was kind of like shaking a little bit. And it was very interesting to kind of feel the power of not only just the thunder, but the lightning nearby too. Just the light of it goes through my body, and feeling the gushes of the wind and the rain and everything coming together like that. And they say in this ceremony, in the 4 days, you become a spirit yourself. You don't eat or drink any water during this whole ceremony, and you're in prayer the whole time, so you become a spirit. So being sensitive to these things, seeing these things, was very, very interesting for me, especially at my age. I was actually mature enough to be able to remember a lot of these things, and hearing and seeing these things was very, very awesome and amazing. And it really brought into perspective that we are not alone in this world. We are not alone in this universe, and with these beings that kind of come around. So there's one more story that happened when I was younger. I would have to say about 8 or 9 years old at the same ceremony. And this is going to all kind of tie back to it, is because when I was around 8 or 9 years old, that same fireplace I always say my uncle goes to, I was there one night with a friend, and it was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I've shared this story on one of my live streams before, but at this ceremony, they say when the sun goes down, it's time for the spirits to run their ceremonies. And so they always say, like, when the sun goes down, it's time for you to go to sleep. Don't stay up too late, because that's when all the spirits kind of come around and do their thing. You got to be reverent and respectful of that. But I was a little kid. I didn't have any supervision, and I was hanging out with a friend. So we were by the fireplace, and we were helping out one of the fire chiefs that was there. We're just kind of just sitting there talking, sharing, because he's from a different tribe, so we're sharing stories with each other. And we were sitting there at the fireplace, and around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're sitting there with the fire chief's like, hey, I gotta go use the restroom real quick, can you guys watch the fire real quick, make sure nothing happens? Okay, yeah, we got you. He's like, all right, I'll be back real quick. So he leaves, uses the restroom, and we're watching the fire. We're talking, we hear a horse kind of neighed. It did like its little noises that it does, and we're just like, hey, I wonder if there's some wild horses around here, or maybe maybe they wanted to end up showing up. And so in front of us at the fireplace, kind of looking down, it kind of goes down a little ravine, and there's a bunch of trees, and then the camps kind of curve around and go back behind it. We're looking there, and it was, like I said, it's dead quiet, everyone's asleep, and you hear wagon wheels start making their way up to the sacred ground, and you hear those horse hoof prints and the neighing that's right there, and then you kind of hear that wagon wheel kind of going, and we're just like, it's weird. It was because my family camps on the other side of those trees that were right there. Let me tell you, there's no freaking wagon there. So when I was a kid, we're sitting there, and I was like, you hear that? And him and I just kind of look at each other, and I was getting scared. I was just like looking at the fire and everything. I didn't know. This was like before all my trainings and stuff. And so we were there, we're like just listening to that, and then the noise kind of started making its way outside of the trees in the clearing. And so what scared us and made us jump was the chief ended up walking up behind us, and he was just like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, Grandpa, listen. He hears it too. He's like, time for you guys to go to bed. You guys shouldn't be up this late. Like, okay, Grandpa. And so we heard the wagon and everything, and we ended up leaving. And so I ended up going to around the teepee area and everything, and then I ended up waiting for my uncle. We as we got up, the wagon wheels stopped, the horses stopped, all those noises and everything stopped, and I was like, what is that? It was very interesting and amazing to be able to hear that. So that same chief, years later, I would say about like 10 years after that event, I went up to him after witnessing those things for those 3 nights. And I asked him about each spirit, and he said, one of those first nights, he said, you heard the being speaking through a tube, you said. He said, there's a lot of spirits that come here, and there's a lot of people that come here from different places. So there's a lot of spiritual beings that come with those people to these ceremonies. And that being that you heard was a Kokopelli. And he was saying the Kokopelli spirit has that flute, that tube. It's kind of a part of his body, and he speaks through that tube, that flute that he has. That being that you sense was a Kokopelli. The second one was a Hyoka spirit. It was a clown spirit, more local to that area up there. And he said, just like how your uncle said, I wanted to scare you because he knows you're jumpy. He knows that you're new to seeing all these things, so he wanted to scare you and freak you out, but in a joking way. And the third one was those thunder being spirits. Very, very powerful beings and spirits, those ones. And those ones right there, just their essence and their power alone. And they come around, that's why you got to be respectful. Never talk bad about spirits or storms, and never talk bad about thunder beings, because they can do some damage. And he says, kind of like how I mentioned, is when he's like, you're getting older now. You've been coming to this ceremony ever since you were a little boy. And now, he said, you've grown up to a man. And you've grown up in this ceremony. You've grown up in these lands too, with the family here. Your spiritual senses are gonna start to open up to you more. They're gonna open up to the spiritual world and things you see and witness and feel. He's like, remember these things because it's a gift. It's a gift that the spirits have deemed you worthy to be able to experience in certain times like this. And so it was beautiful to be able to go over there, experience those things, and come home from that ceremony. And it's always so hard to just go back to normal life whenever you experience such amazing things like that from a ceremony. And but things I took away from that is kind of goes back to that video of Never Judge a Book by Its Cover, spiritual video that I did of trying to detect what's good and what's bad. That's one thing I learned early on, was when it comes to this stuff, don't be attacking spirits that may be looking creepy but they're actually good. Just like the Hyoka spirit, and then the Kokopelli too. Like, he's just walking around doing his own thing, participating in the ceremony, and I'm pretty sure he did not want a sword going at him, so he just walked away. He sensed my intent with it. So always be grounded, though. Always, that I think that was one thing that I always kind of forgot about, is remembering who I am, remembering to always stay grounded and knowing myself mentally, spiritually, and physically too. That one's going to be a members only video, kind of going deeper dive into that one. But being grounded and remembering who you are, because both of these cases happened and it was all new feelings and experiences within my own physical body. Seeing it with my eyes, hearing it with my ears, feeling it within my muscles, my nerves, everything was new. And soak it up. I try to experience it, because I was blessed that this was all done in a sacred, safe area. Now, when it comes to combat and warfare, that's different. When it comes to spiritual beings and deities, that's different. There's different tiers of darkness and evil out there, and the feelings that they give you are different depending on how powerful, depending on how strong, kind of tactics they use to be able to get at you, your loved ones. It could be sneaky, it could be straight up blunt, it could be overpowering, or it could be just a little sizzle. So many different things that kind of go with it. But ultimately, telling you, knowing yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically is going to be your greatest defense against these things. If you know who you are, nothing can manipulate you into something you're not. Nobody can instill fear into you if you're not scared. Nobody can instill dark thoughts if you already know what kind of thoughts you think of. Thoughts that are not of your own. You already know and recognize that, and you can use that for combat too, to protect yourself, and understand that too. And pray about it. Like whatever faith, religion that you may have yourself, pray about it. Be connected with something. And that's one thing with us Indigenous people. Yeah, we have the creator. Yeah, we have our other deities too in the spiritual world. But it's not just that. We pray to the earth. We pray to the sky, Mother Earth and Father Sky. We pray to the elements. We pray to the trees. We pray to the air, the storms, and all sorts of different things. You're never away from home. You're never too far from home if you know how to recognize and speak with Mother Earth, Father Sky. The earth will always be the earth. The sky will always be the sky. The storm will always be a storm. The air will always be the air. Remember that. Pray with it. Be connected with it. And those really helped me with my senses kind of growing into it. And as time went on, it became kind of normal. Still in my sleep sometimes, I freak out sometimes because I remember some things that we used to do or anything like that. But it kind of became instinct for me. Like if I sense something and I'm asleep, I wake up middle of the night and I just flick my smoke. But yeah, so that's going to be, I would have to say maybe part one of what I'm going to be talking about, and then I'll go in depth about knowing yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically. Maybe I can go into more detail about it, but that's probably going to be a members only video because I don't want that out there for everyone to know, and those who really want to know, $2. Join Shanclen Shadow Productions memberships. But that will probably be the end of this video and my tale of actually going through full body apparitions and feelings that I first remember. Other times, whenever I would see or experience beings, it was either forced upon me and or out of instinct for war and survival, which sucks. But yeah, this one was different. It goes into tears with it all, but it was awesome and amazing. Thank you all so much for watching. Some channel updates. There's going to be a new video coming up on the Shanclen Shadow Lodge. So if you guys aren't subscribed to that, go subscribe right now to Shanclen Shadow Lodge. And so go follow me on Instagram at ClenWarriorSSP. And if you guys have any creepy stories you would like to send me, send it over to ShanclenShadowProductions@gmail.com. Links to everything are in my bio. My TikTok is ShanclenSP. If you guys have any creepy videos you'd like to send me, go ahead and submit them there. If you guys would like to become a member of Shanclen Shadow Productions, do that as well, because you get early access to all these amazing videos. So yes. Hope you all have a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Hagone. flicking my smoke everywhere. Those are very fun memories, though. Good times. We're going up, up, up. Let's get this video edited up. About a certain type of ceremony I went to up. Of a certain... I just noticed that this is all bent up. Sorry, got distracted. But I'm going to be taking you back.